I'm Aaron Sagers, and this is Talking Strange.
Hey there, spooky nerds. Welcome back to Talking Strange, the paranormal pop culture show. I'm Aaron Sagers, and perhaps you've heard of the new film by the prestige horror studio A24. It's called Undertone. You should be familiar with it. It opens on March 13th. It is getting so much buzz, and it's been getting continuous buzz since premiering at Sundance last year. And the brief synopsis is the host of a popular paranormal podcast becomes haunted by terrifying recordings mysteriously sent her way. First off, look, I feel personally called out as someone that also hosts a paranormal podcast. I will say that this film, written, directed by Ian Tuason, it's its first feature film, is so good. This is really a story that is driven by sound design, so effective and so creepy. The cinematography on this is just unnerving, and along with Ian Tuason's direction, Nina Kiri, who plays Evie, by and large, the only person that we're our only character on screen for the most part, and one of the only couple voices we hear throughout the entire film. She does an excellent job. This is such an atmospheric film. It's creepy, and it also involves some deep cut lore with a ancient, I'll just say it, demonic entity, Abizu, which is a real entity according to lore, also known as Abuzuth. And the the movie is a original concept. We do see inspiration, as we always do, homages to other films, but it's an original concept. It's a strong concept. Already, that's going to get me in the theater, get my butt in the theater seats, because I'm always going to show up for, especially horror movies that are coming at this with a fresh concept and are not part of some franchise. Nothing against franchises, but I'm always going to show up for those filmmakers doing original things. But beyond showing up for the originality, it is a solid, solid flick. So I was able to chat with the director, Ian Tuason. And I got to say, normally you approach these interviews trying to come up with insightful ideas and questions, maybe things that haven't been asked about a million times, but then you also have to ask questions that are kind of repeat questions for to get clicks, to create buzz around the show, things like that. And Ian has also been tapped to direct the new Paranormal Activity film. So not only is that very exciting, that kind of, even though they can't say much about it, you got to ask about that, right? It's just something you got to do on my end, from the hosty side. What I didn't expect is I knew Ian was into the paranormal based on some research and other interviews I had read. What I didn't expect is the level and the depth of spooky that he was into. This is a gentleman that has crafted this very creepy film, and it's creepy and then it gets scary. He's crafted this film, but he's also a very informed, clearly done the reading, clearly done the research about the paranormal, but is also influenced by it. This is a guy that you can really, when you talk to him, like there's so much about his personal philosophy that comes out of his backstory and his own experiences with strangeness. And part of that backstory is taking care of two ill, ailing parents who then passed away. He was a caregiver, he was in the home and taking care of them, and also experiencing that range of emotions as he was doing so: guilt, sadness, regret, maybe some anger. And that all comes forth with our character of Evie, who is similarly taking care of a mother that is on her way to dying. She's on her deathbed. And so this was just an unexpectedly real and fascinating conversation with Ian, and I absolutely loved it because this was not a guy that was talking in sound bites. In fact, I feel like we we got a lot out of this that I was yeah, it just kind of took me aback. And I'm recording this intro right after having done the interview, so it's still very fresh in my mind. Also, for those of you that are watching the video side of this, Ian also picks us up and takes us on a little quick tour of his house, which is where they filmed Undertone. So I think you want to check out the video portion of that and shows us some other goodies too. So let's get to it. Ian Tuason, writer and director of Undertone, which opens March 13th. And I want you to go to the theaters and do check this out and keep an eye on this guy because he is a very gifted filmmaker, and I'm excited to see what he's going to do with Paranormal Activity. So let's get to it. Super stoked to talk to you, man. And really enjoyed the film. I was very excited to see it. I guess the first thing I want to chat about is because I had seen in another interview that you had name dropped Mysteries of the Unknown, which was the book series. But you're into those kinds of shows and everything.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, that's the book series.
Yeah,
They're all black.
yeah.
It's Time Life magazine. That's the UFO one.
It's a
Okay.
UFO one. Yeah, I
No,
would.
I have those too, heavily influenced by them, but I made a mistake calling the show that.
What well, I loved the Mysteries of the Unknown book series, and my mom would would end up in used bookstores and pick up any copy I could, but I would love the commercials that I'm a little bit older than you that would run in the I guess the late 80s and 90s, like a man in Peoria gets a phone call from a mysterious voice, and then it's like coincidence or something else.
Yeah, those ones, but they were called mysteries something. It wasn't unsolved mysteries because that was crime, right? Unsolved mysteries.
They did spooky stuff too. They
Maybe
they
it
did
was that then, yeah.
yeah,
Maybe
with
it
Robert
was
Stack.
they maybe I'm thinking of the ghost ones of unsolved mysteries. But do you remember the one with a Toys R Us, a haunted Toys R Us?
I do, yeah. I saw you had mentioned that. Yeah, it was like in California or somewhere, I think.
Yeah, toys were falling off the shelves in the back, and then the camera captured some audio.
Well,
I could be mixing up different shows that I've watched because I've come here with Betty. I'm pretty sure that was a Toys R Us.
but
That was freaky. It was so specific. I've come here with Betty, and it was like you know, the voice was barely you can't barely hear it. You have to crank up the volume, which is what Evie does. So all that stuff scared me, and I just added it.
yeah, I mean, I ate up all that stuff as a kid, and I don't know how much info they give you on the backstory, but like in addition to doing this, like the Talking Strange thing and these interviews, I actually work in paranormal TV. So for I started as a journalist, and then I ended up somehow in paranormal TV. So I travel all around doing investigations, but also like talking about folklore and legends and everything. So when I was watching
Um,
Undertone.
you and I seem to have the same interest. My guessing is you're 77?
Oh yes, actually, yeah, yeah.
Wow, wow. See that guess? Coincidence
I
or
think
something
not.
else?
Something more. Yeah, like I was when I had read that interview, I'm like, I'm gonna pull out a couple of these books. But I also, so I mean, I just love talking to people that this stuff was ingrained in them as a kid. And was there other shows that you would watch or other stuff you'd get into on the spooky side?
There's always specials, right? Like
Yeah.
it's not all back in the 80s and 90s. It's all I would get surprised if ever a special would pop up. Um, but it's not always in something like Unsolved Mysteries where it's like the ghost special. Sometimes there would be a one-off,
Hmm.
kind of like a Christmas special, just like something that I would be excited to see the commercial for.
Yeah.
And then I remember I had a VHS and I would time it for taping us, at a specific time and and that so I have probably I have yeah, I don't know, 400 VHS tapes.
Well, this is how this stuff survives and ends up on YouTube, which I'm happy about because I can go back and watch these things. And then there was I think a miniseries of Mysteries of the Unknown at one point, but it may have been I forget when that came out. But I would love the chyrons, the titles of these people like crop circle expert or just these most random expertise. But with all the Catholic imagery in the film, were you raised Catholic?
Yeah, I was raised Catholic, so uh, all the fears I had growing up, I used I used that as fuel for this movie.
I mean, I was also raised Catholic, and I remember specifically being over at one relative's house, and they had this big painting of Jesus, and it was a velvet painting, but it was like Jesus in agony and looking kind of pissed off, and it was just like it was a terrifying painting of what is supposed to be, your savior, and it was right by the entrance to the basement, which just made it extra creepy for me. Was there any of those type of images from you during your childhood that you're just like, this is supposed to be holy, but man, this is freaking me out?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's confusing, right? I mean, there's two images of Christ. There's the risen Lord, and he's in light, and he's like he's floating upwards, and then there's the Jesus on the cross, and they're supposed to mean the same thing, but to kid, they're completely they're polar opposites. One of them was, this is what happens to you, and you're if you're bad, you go to hell, you suffer, and this is you, and you're free from sin. And now that I'm older, I kind of look at it like, uh, when you see Jesus suffering on the cross, it's you immediately got to think of the backstory and how he still loved us, even though
Hmm.
and whether you believe the mystical aspect of it, like whether or not he could have just freed himself, but knowing that his sacrifice would birth Christianity and help a lot of people, and maybe he foresaw that and just allowed his death anyway, and
Hmm.
that's kind of that's kind of what it symbolized to me now. But when you're a kid, you don't really think that deeply. Right? You're just you just think, wow, that's I feel bad for that person. I don't want to be in the on that cross. But as an adult, wow, that cross symbolized helped me a lot. That image, because when I was going, I remember I was going through a lot of pain, caregiving, and then trying to numb it through alcohol, which is what Evie does. And then I just kind of surrendered to whatever it is I was feeling. And I'm like, this is life, this is being human. And that's kind of when I looked at the cross, it was, when he says, I suffered for you, uh, I'm like, well, I just in my head, I was just offering everything to divinity, whatever, like I just relinquished all control, and I'm
Hmm.
just and then all of a sudden, I did feel lighter. I stopped trying to control things and like my emotions or anything like that.
The imagery element, just the other thing I was thinking about with it is we have this ceramic statue of these babies kind of clawing up the saintly figure, and I research a lot of folklore and legends and everything, and that one I was not familiar with, so I was curious about that. It's a striking piece, and I actually would like to have that as like a replica or something. But where did that imagery come from? And I guess who has that little piece of set design now? That's little ceramic statue.
I have something good for you. Just a second. It's in the next room.
Oh, cool.
So this is
It's a good show and tell. I like this.
Yeah,
Just
this
gonna,
is the door. Remember Evie's door in
yeah.
the remember where she's always we're always looking at that door beside her, and sometimes we shoot through the door.
Yeah.
Yes, I might as well show you the set. So it's like there's the set. Notice?
There's the table where she actually recorded.
Yeah, there's the chandelier. There's the it's still dressed. Like there's
Yeah.
and then the piano, the clock, and there's a black cat,
What's a cat's name?
Bella.
Bella.
Yeah.
And you were saying with
The
that little
thing.
that
Yeah.
statue, you have that too?
Here's the original.
Oh, it looks Eastern European or
It does. Russian almost.
Russian, yeah.
So
So
here's the
is
story.
yeah.
When I was writing Undertone, I knew that a haunted object was something that had to be in the movie. And I was thinking what it was. And I was shopping at Value Village. This was about a month after my mom passed, which was uh April 2021.
Hmm.
And I saw this thing, right? And it kind of it looks like she's screaming and all these babies are over her, like she doesn't want these babies or that she's infested by babies. It's like the anti-mother almost. Like if she was smiling. So I figured, okay, this is a good one. Like I was about to shoot this myself with my buddy Graham Beasley, who's the DOP. It was just gonna be me, him, an actress, and maybe two other people. And so I was sourcing out everything, and this is what I was gonna use. But we didn't get clearance on it, so we had to 3D print one. And Mercedes Coyle, our talented production designer, she designed the one that you see in the film, which looks like Mother Mary with babies crawling on her. Oftentimes, Mother Mary is depicted with an open heart.
Hmm.
So, so I just said, take out the heart, and it's you open up her chest, and there's nothing, and she's screaming because there's a bunch of babies that she doesn't want. So that was 3D printed. I'll save one for you. I think we have three extra ones.
Oh, you're a good man. It's a disturbing piece of imagery, and then that's aside from Abuzu, who like I've got a friend that I was already familiar with the demon this book Dictionary of Demons by Michel Belanger. There's other names for the demon Abuzith, and I'm sure I'm butchering the pronunciations. But how did you find this particular entity? Because it's kind of a low key demon as far as we've got the rock stars in pop culture like Pazuzu, and then we've had these other characters. Yeah, but where'd you find her?
Well, when I was writing the story about a daughter caregiving her mom, because I was caregiving my mom. Do you know the backstory about my personal,
I
like
do, yes.
my personal backstory? Yeah, so I kind of felt like taking care of my mom was like a reversal of roles, and it was stressing me out, and I was I didn't know how to manage these new emotions I was having. So it's kind of like I put myself in a spiral where I wanted it to be over, I wanted to leave, but uh m- I started feeling guilty for feeling that because my mom was would always care for me unconditionally. And then, so if I did happen to to find someone to watch her and I leave for a night, I'd come back and I would feel guilty for doing that. and so that would keep me stuck in more stress because now I don't want to leave anymore. And it's just I felt like Evie uh had had to make a decision. Uh so having deciding whether or not to keep her child, that was what I came up with. So I would, obviously I had to make her a woman.
Hmm.
Uh I think that very early, I mean, it was a guy, like Evie was played by someone more like me, like a son.
Hmm.
uh, it made sense to have her faced with that decision. And then I started thinking, if she doesn't want her baby, because she doesn't want that responsibility, what demon could she accidentally call, je- uh, or unconsciously call upon? Who would want that baby?
Hmm.
And, and then I just started Googling, and I found Avizu, and she was perfect. Her story was perfect for, the demon that will take away your baby if you don't want it. But obviously, both Evie and the demon are driven by very selfish reasons that have nothing to do with the baby, and that's what happens you know when children suffer because of the horrible things adults do.
Well, and grief and anger and all these things, they're not bad emotions. And when you're experiencing that in that contained area, I mean, there's theories, paranormal ideas, notions that, all of these emotions feed whatever activity is in a place, but also we're complicated humans, feeling that anger, sadness, regret, guilt, all the things wrapped up with your parents, and their situation. I apologize. You might be hearing some serious New York City tonnage out there of sirens, but and I'll just let these guys pass for a second.
On when we were shooting, we had a problem with planes. It was
Yeah.
nonstop. And then when we stopped shooting, planes were gone. They were like the planes came by once every 15 minutes instead of once every second.
It's the joy of, yeah, I've done that on some shows where it's like you're trying to have a spooky atmosphere. Actually, in Toronto, I had this experience and it was like hold for plane, hold for plane. But I was curious, is this house kind of haunted before we even get to the demon? Because there are it seems like these vibes, and man, I could be reading too much into it, but early on, a couple minutes in, there's this moment where Evie is looking up the steps, and I'm like, are we seeing like the suggestion of orbs floating through here, or so that's the question. Is there something kind of haunted or something spooky going on in this house even before we get to the demon element?
No, it paranormal stuff started happening in the house right before the shoot. So this was after I wrote the demon. It's like it's almost like I summoned the demon.
Well, I was thinking within the story, but go with that because there was spooky stuff going on in your house.
Yeah, I mean, I have videos. I'm saving them of like of most of the things that I've written in the script were ended up happening throughout throughout production and a few days before production. Like you know how there's a lot of light flickering in the house. So, a couple days before production, m multiple light bulbs in my house just started flickering. Not at the same time, but like one would flicker, and then another would flicker, and it was they were all in areas of the house that we see. There were no light bulb in other rooms or stuff that we don't see flickered like that, and they don't just flicker; they flicker at relevant times, like at 3 a.m. on the dining room table. When I'm on the dining room table, the chandelier above me, one light bulb would flicker, like the one directly above my head, and then the hallway light over the stairs. The best part the best video I have is the camera crew coming on set, and everything's fine, but when they start walking up the stairs, it flickers, and I have Graham, my DOP, start saying, "Ian, I think I believe everything you're saying now," and then that was just the start. Um, like I could I'll name a couple real quick. So
Yeah.
Nina Nina came to the house for the first time, and for some reason she was freezing and everyone wasn't. So I have a photo of her wearing a winter coat and everyone's just wearing what normal, regular indoor clothes. And she kept complaining that she was cold. We didn't know why. And then when she left, she was fine. But the last the last line that she says in the movie is, "Something's wrong, Justin. I'm so cold." And that's something that I picked up on that no one else did. And Evie would hear whispering, and then she would, walk into her mom's bedroom, and it clearly wasn't her whispering. People were like on set, my makeup artist Natalia, like I like there was one day where I went, "Yeah," and then because I heard her go, "Ian," and then she goes, "I didn't say anything," and then it happened to her. I came in one day and then she said, "How long you been here?" I said, "I just got here." And she was looking shocked. She goes, I just heard you call for me upstairs. That's why I'm kind of confused that you just walked in." And that's just two things. And I could name many things. And now everyone in the crew, they all believe. They were all skeptics at first. There were one or two that were open to it. I was a skeptic, but once things started happening, uh, I became not just a believer, but an I, like a knower. I
Mm.
I gnosis, the books that you read. You probably heard the like gnosis. Some of the Christian mystics,
Hmm.
they claim to have reached that kind of consciousness of just knowing. And no one can really reach it unless they experience them themselves. And it's kind of like an emotion. You can't, if someone has never experienced, let's just say love, you can't really prove it. You can't really prove to someone that love exists, right?
What do you think, to what do you attribute the weird stuff in the house? I mean, do you think it's maybe some just imprint of your parents and your life there? Do you think it's some level of intelligence? Do you think what do you think is happening there? Or is it a result of you putting so much energy into this script and making this movie and the result, also dealing with grief? I mean, yeah, what do you think?
Well, I could, I could talk for hours about this. I mean, if I were to talk about it in general to people who haven't experienced anything like that, or even have doubts that it exists, and that maybe the people that have experienced it or believe it are either insane or I don't know, stupid, right? Who knows? But I would bring up uh, quantum mechanics, quantum
Hmm.
physics, the the double slit experiment, uh, the fact that Albert Einstein had uh, called quantum entanglement spooky action at a distance. And these are things that physicists can't explain, but they all agree that it exists. It's measured. And that's the problem with science is that it's it's you know I understand I'm a big science geek. Like I love learning about science, but it's the study of things that it's the study of the physical world, and it can only and you only believe something if it can be measured.
Hmm.
And but you're looking at these events and this data through the lens of consciousness, and consciousness is can't be measured. So it's like what the double slit experiment and quantum entanglement has shown me is that our consciousness and the physical world are are connected at a physical level that that eventually one day will be measured. So
Yeah.
I do think that my emotions, um, my what my thoughts they do affect the reality around me, and so does yours. Whether you're conscious of it or not, mine might be a little stronger because I've done the work of just contemplating and studying, and I've seen the results, and uh, the results are, you know, the success of this movie, seeing everything line up, and then get Paranormal Activity all within 1 year, and if the, so there is an intelligence, a higher intelligence that kind of uh, kind of guides things, little micro events and things just in the ways they're in the ways that it wants to, as long as you align with that consciousness, which is almost like it's like all the religions talk about the rules, right?
Hmm.
All I did was I just followed the rules. I started following the rules, and like for example, this movie, I began to switch my my intentions from doing this movie for myself to doing it for all of you. So not just the fans, but also my crew. And it's like giving I'm giving my energy and my focus to what's best for this movie so that it could help you. And once I did that, then I saw reality change around me, and I think to a point where it's literally changing, like the lights flickering, and my actress feeling cold when I've written her final line to be "I'm cold." It's just it's that crazy. But if I can still, you know, I've been told a lot by people who've experienced what I've experienced to not talk so much about it. But he also said, you can talk about it. They're just going to think you're crazy, but it doesn't really matter. Some people might understand it, some people might not. But either way, uh, you don't have to talk about it.
No,
That's
I find it refreshing, honestly, because I'm down in the deep end of the weird pool, like where I don't really operate with necessarily, I don't present myself as having knowing the rules to things, but I'm open-minded to everything. So I kind of, I think when you reach that point where you're just like, okay, I'm going to allow for the possibility of a lot of things here. Then you start noticing a lot of patterns and trends, and like it's to quote a friend of mine, the what you think is weirder than you think. It's a big universe out there. I so that's kind of where I approach it. I'm curious, like I mean EVPs, first off, I guess our character's name is Evie. So EVPs, um are very creepy. They're really compelling pieces of evidence that I personally have experienced a handful of times, many times, I guess. This sound of hearing something on an electronic device that sounds like it's right next to you but shouldn't be there is cool, is unsettling, but also I'm curious. It's also can be subjective. We even have Evie doesn't hear it at first, and then the character Justin kind of slows it down. With the podcast element of Undertone, I was thinking about it as I'm watching this. I'm like, okay, so we're playing these EVPs, we're playing these these sounds that seem like they're potentially summoning this demon. Is the Undertone podcast, how popular is this within your world? Like, is there a backstory to the actual podcast within this world? And is there a ripple effect of listeners hearing this audio? And is there even like some connection, because it just seemed like too much of a coincidence, between the house of the caller who says heard of this story in the same neighborhood as Evie's, you know? So that's a multiple things, but I'm curious about the existence of this podcast within your universe.
Yeah, we've I wrote the backstory, and I wrote I wrote what happens after. Uh Undertone is a trilogy, so there's I'm exploring all those questions that you had uh in part two and three. All those questions will be answered. So maybe I'll say save it until then, and
Okay.
you're gonna love it.
So I'm on the right path with some of these questions.
You are,
Okay,
yeah.
I like it. I like it. And what are some other kind of uh, sort of either superstitions or well, I know you grew up in Toronto, right? Like, were there other urban legends from where you grew up or stories that you heard that just kind of became part of your DNA, or even sort of the personal legends that, we all have our very specific monster in the closet under the bed. I've seen you talk about this a little bit. So yeah, Toronto legends or even personal legends that influenced the DNA of the film.
Well, Toronto, not so much. I mean, I was always scared of this restaurant. I think it's called Cherry Hill in Mississauga. Uh, I went to, when it was closed, me and my buddy, uh, Wiser Laksamana, he went to, we'd go up to the windows and look through. We would, do one of these and try and look through the windows, and we would see the chairs up, uh, because it's closed, and just nothing happening, but just being so afraid to search, which is kind of what a lot of Undertone is just searching for something that you can feel is there. Uh, I I, I did a post grad program in Humber Humber College Lakeshore campus, which was a hospital, and they did have they did have an insane asylum uh, in there, and the way it was built, it's a bunch of houses connected through tunnels because back then, 100 years ago or so, the winters would be so bad that they created tunnels so that they can just
Hmm.
walk to building. But when I was there, one of the buildings was shut down, and even the tunnel underneath it was closed off. So people would have to, well, your students weren't allowed under there, but employees were, and we would just go in there. Uh, we would have to walk down the tunnel, and once we were about to go under this house, which was the insane asylum in the hospital, we would have to exit the tunnel through staircase going up, go around the house, and then go back in the tunnel to continue. And we found that weird. And we talked to a lot of the janitors there, and they said uh, they weren't allowed to go in there or under there. Uh, and the story is that employees would get traumatized from things that they would witness there, and the school just didn't want to, you know, didn't want anyone else to quit anymore. And then so they just closed it off. And my friends did go in and took photos, and one of them we could see the we could see what looks like to be uh kind of like a cloudy figure of a nun. And then, nun is so cliche, but we didn't choose what we captured in the photo. And me and my buddy also went there at night and put our ears to the door. And I did hear a table kind of being pushed. That 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 sound of a heavy table being pushed over wood, over hardwood. And then I ran. So these are the kinds of things that happened around uh my neighborhood. But mostly a lot of the stuff that scared me was like what, the mysteries of the
Yeah.
unknown, that kind of stuff that I would read. And then all that stuff scared me so much because that stuff could happen in my house. So I wasn't scared of anything like Jason or Freddy Krueger because, that's, well, number one, I know it even as a kid, I know it's a movie. Number two, even if it was real, I'm nowhere close to Elm Street, right? So
Yeah. The
I was not scared of those stuff, but I'm scared of the mysteries of the unknown.
it's funny you mentioned the tunnels thing because one of the spots I've filmed at and I'll do events with the public at with like people that watch projects and stuff that I'm involved with. One of them is I think Waverly Hills has also tunnels, and it was for kind of transporting, the nurses to get from one point to the other, the doctors. But then they became known as these death chutes because during times of tuberculosis and a lot of people dying, a lot of people each day, that they would transport the bodies through there so as not to disturb the patients. So, to upset them further but these tunnel systems that are part of these locations that have these haunted reputations seems to be a recurring theme. So, what else intrigues you about sort of the world of the spooky or the paranormal? Concepts, ideas, or anything else that you're into, or even things that you're just like, some people stay away from Ouija boards. Meanwhile, I personally, like I said, raised Catholic, but I'm not. I somehow have acquired a lot of Ouija boards and things like that. But anything like that that intrigues you within the paranormal realm?
Well, I was always interested in the paranormal because yeah, I just, I loved mystery.
Hmm.
I was a very curious kid. I didn't know if I believed it or not as a kid. I mean, I must have believed it to a certain degree because I was afraid of it. But when my parents passed, all that changed. I just, they were the two most important people in my life, and they were gone. And I guess the grief hit me so much, uh, and the surprise of how meaningless life felt afterwards. I just began to seek uh, whether or not there was something else beyond what our five senses can perceive. And that was my intention when I started studying ancient scripture like the Bible, the Quran, the Bhagavad Gita. I and just by accident, I ended up uh I ended up locking myself into this house uh just to read, to contemplate, and I didn't had little to zero connection to the outside world. I didn't talk to anyone. I didn't watch TV. I didn't go on my phone. I didn't go on internet. And I I just meditated, contemplated, uh, took walks in nature, and then that's when slowly I was hit with a sudden flip in perception, which Buddhists would call enlightenment, or alcoholics would call a moment of clarity.
Hmm.
And w- and then I started noticing a pattern in the length of time it took me to reach that, which was 40 days. And the Jesus went into the wilderness for 40 days and 40 nights where he was tempted. And I was tempted. I was tempted to drink, right? Like I was that was, I had to negotiate with the voice in my head, right? To not do the things that I was doing that was causing suffering for me. And then, Moses was isolated on Mount Sinai for 40 days and 40 nights. And then he saw a burning bush.
Hmm.
And and Buddha sat under the Bodhi tree for 40 days and 40 nights. And the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, went into a cave and for 40 days and 40 nights. And when he came out, he said, Someone write this. I
Yeah.
got I got this, I have this I downloaded something into my mind. And that was the Quran. And I'm just like, I reached that point. And we all have our we all have different we all have different paths. I wouldn't wish this path on anyone because that it only meant I hit a low that the only way I could have risen again was if I did exactly what I said I did, which is isolate, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, shamans do it too in indigenous cultures. They have to break away from society and go into the woods in order to tap into uh, some level of consciousness that that other people in society wouldn't understand unless they do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a hard transition coming back because once I came back to this reality, no one understood me. But guess what? Here's my script. This is what came out of it, and then everything just started going my way.
I I know we're getting the wrap, and I want to throw one question at you, and Ryan, permit me if I may. But well, first off, just as a quick aside, there's something about this that also kind of touched me personally. It was when I was a kid, not an older person, but when I was a kid, my mom was in a coma for like 6 months, and very much, not knowing what the deal was, if she's going to come out, if she's, what, you know as a young kid learning lines like do not resuscitate and flatlining and things like that, too young to learn that. But at the same time, I had a family member that was struggling with alcoholism, which then weirdly led to strange things happening in our own house. And there are parallels, and honestly, people that are struggling with alcoholism, it is like being haunted. You are having this kind of ghost on the fringes that's constantly pursuing you. And
That's why it's called spirits.
yeah. There's a lot happening in this film that I personally kind of tapped into, but just and I could talk to you all day about this. I find you immensely fascinating. Clearly you've done the work and the reading on this, but sort of the question that I have to end with, or else the people that pay me are going to kill me, is obviously congrats on Paranormal Activity. You have to keep the plot, close to your vest. I get that. So, in a roundabout way, what were the things about Paranormal Activity, such a seminal movie that I happen to love? What were the things about it that you loved so much, or that got into you so much that you feel like you want to preserve some core of that, or reflect that, or honor that? What was it about that first movie in the franchise overall that just, that you
It
love so
was
much?
it was the scariest one of the franchise. It was one of the scariest movies I've ever seen, and I wanted to scare people with my movie. So I studied Paranormal Activity and why it scared me, and you know I would say that the number one reason was that it 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 allowed me as the viewer to kind of form my own uh, an image of what that demon was, or what it is. And uh, we don't see the demon. We never see it. We hear it. We see the after effect of uh, of what the demon leaves behind. And the entire time we're kind of writing or watching the movie in our minds. Uh, Everyone who watched Paranormal Activity, we our eyes saw the same thing, but whatever our mind processed, that's unique to every individual. So I try to allow my viewers to do the same thing with using other techniques, but I did use the technique of capturing audio uh, of a young couple while they were sleeping. So, this is I'm suggesting this is what happens when you're not looking. And now what that does, it 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 kind of influences viewers to imagine what's off screen. And
Hmm.
that's what I tried to pull from when I made Undertone, and with Paranormal, I'm going to do the same thing.
And that was writer-director Ian Tuason of Undertone, which opens in theaters March 13th. And I think you know now why I, in the intro, was maybe rambling, very excited about building up to this interview with Ian because it just felt so real, felt so insightful, and I find it to be such a pleasant and intriguing cat. So check out Undertone in theaters March 13th. And that's it for me for this episode of Talking Strange. I'm Aaron Sagers. Until next time, be kind, stay spooky, and keep it weird.